Original post, August 22, 2022. I, 30 male, and my wife, 27 female, own a sizable farm that is usually the nexus of family events. 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 300 acres, and electrical hookups for 4 campers so the whole clan can come stay for extended visits in the summer. We built it that way deliberately. My cousin Bill, early 50s, has an 18-year-old daughter Alice, from his first marriage. His first wife was an immigrant with no family in our country and no contact with any family in her home country. She passed away when Alice was 2 and Bill remarried Tanya, early 50s, 6 months later. They have since had 3 kids. Alice is a brat. Everything in their house revolves around either the boys, their 2 oldest together, or their princess, their daughter together, and Alice is left behind. She doesn't get to go on family trips, they wouldn't pay for extracurricular stuff, she couldn't take elective classes that had extra fees. I'm not a smart man, but I can recognize a kid that's hurting inside and being neglected. She's like Mr. Hyde with him and Dr. Jekyll elsewhere. For the last 4 summers, she's been coming to work on my farm because her parents don't want her around over summer break. She turned 18 recently, and leading up to her birthday her dad was very adamant that she was being kicked out of the house when she turned 18 because it will teach her responsibility. My wife, Alice, and I discussed it, and early on her birthday we pulled up with my truck and packed her stuff up. We only packed things she purchased herself or things that were given to her by another person. My boss got creative with our benefits provider so we can get Alice on my medical benefits until she finishes university. She starts in a few weeks, so she's able to go to therapy and she's able to get back into sports while still saving her money. This is where it all comes apart. Bill and Tanya are pissed that we took her in and refused to come to family events. Part of the family refused to attend as well because I'm undermining Bill and Tanya. I'll understand when I have kids. After they refused to attend events, a few others said that with gas being so expensive and not everyone attending, they'd skip as well. My answer of okie dokie, come if you want and don't if you don't, further upset people who thought I should have tried harder to get people to come, so now we're down to about a quarter of the family in attendance for events. My aunt suggested that we have Alice over on weekends and that she stays in a dorm during the week to smooth things over. I think that's dumb, but I'm dumb and stubborn. My wife thinks it's dumb and she's really smart but also very much attached to the situation. Alice said she'd rather stay with us but would try the dorms to help make peace. Edit 1. Bit of a mini update. I ripped the band-aid off with the family and told them that fewer mouths to feed isn't the punishment they thought it was. Anyone else who is coming is still welcome, and I'd have the extra cash from not feeding so many people to help the folks concerned about gas prices make it out if they so choose. I'm in like 4 different family group chats and they're all lighting up. I'm going to turn my phone on silent for a while and let the sparks fly. I'll check in on the post in a while, and if anything noteworthy comes up and it's interesting, I'll give you all an update in the future. Update 1, August 23, 2022, 1 day later. Alrighty, here's the update on the situation and a little background info for some consistent topics in the comments. So, my family likes to gossip and they're damn efficient at it. If your truck breaks down with only you in it 5 miles from home, word has reached every aunt and cousin before you're in your door. When I put the word out, it traveled fast. This morning I've been called all the names in the book and some new ones, so there may be a revised and updated edition of said book coming out. I've been told I'm a good guy, a bad guy, I'm stupid, I'm smart, I'm short-sighted, I'm thinking ahead. It's been neat. Long story short, I've got about a dozen relatives telling me thanks and they'll buy me a pint next time they're out, and about triple that who never want to speak to me again, so those are both significant victories. Now, nobody here really cares about me, we're all about Team Alice here. She's a Redditor apparently and came across the post independently of me showing her. There were tears, born of stress and relief I think, and she's going to be staying here with us until she's ready to start the next chapter of her life, whatever and whenever that might be. She's got classes picked and is looking into the women's league for a hockey team when the season starts, so she's all set on that front. Regarding feeding everyone and paying for gas, without going into details, I was very fortunate as a young man to be working very hard at a job I was woefully underqualified for while a very wealthy person was on site. Basically, right place, right time, and the chief took me in and mentored me. We have made a lot of money on a business venture together in addition to me working for him, and since then I haven't exactly had a few money but enough that I was able to buy the property I live on outright and build my home here with my wife, who also makes good money. Family is important to both of us and neither of our sides of the family tree have much for money, so we've done our best to make sure money isn't a barrier to getting together and seeing one another. Now, the big news: Tanya drove down to my house this morning. Bill and I had some very loud, Very angry words when he drove down last night after I chose the nuclear option in the family group chats, so she actually waved a white flag from her car when she pulled up. I shooed the dogs and alpaca away and went out to talk to her, brought her out a muffin and we had a bit of a chat. Allegedly, Bill was threatening to kick Alice out to scare her straight, and that they weren't actually going to kick her out and they were caught off guard when we showed up on the morning of her birthday. I told her that she was missing the point and that I'm not sure I could use small enough words or short enough sentences to explain it to her if she thought that was the only problem. She cried, she peeled out of my driveway at Mach 7, and it's been radio silent since, which I'm currently enjoying. Relevant comments. Comment 1. What's Alice's relationship with Bill and Tanya like? OP. At this point it's pure speculation, but I've always sort of picked up that Bill is of the opinion that Tanya and their kids together are his family and she's this sort of Harry Potter-like relation he's stuck with. At first, I thought it was a race thing as her mom was from Guatemala, and she has dark skin and pin straight dark hair rather than being pale curly-haired like the rest of us. But as she aged, if you compare photos of her mom to her at the same ages, they could have been twins. I think it's a lot of jealousy from Tanya and Bill is just a dirtbag, so I have no idea how his brain works. Comment 2. What is the rest of the family like? OP. Her dad and I have locked horns over this a few times. I was still a youngin' myself when her mom passed, so I haven't always been in a position to do anything more than lock horns, but I've at least been here. Not to excuse the extended family, but I think a fair few of them would be more sympathetic if they lived closer and didn't just get his spin on it over Facebook and saw what the branch of the family tree that lives here sees. They're not a big league of evil aunts and uncles. They're just kind of ignorant and have been fed a very creative interpretation of the truth by Bill and Tanya for over a decade with no evidence of there being more to it. Plus, my dislike for Bill and Tanya is quite well known in our family, which also colors their perception of the situation a bit, I'd wager. Comment 3. Bill remarried Tanya really quickly after his first marriage. OP. That does sound ominous when it's put like that, but as far as I know, there's nothing untoward there. Alice's mom was hit by a random drunk driver and Bill's just a schmuck. Without putting the family's dirty laundry out there, my understanding is that their marriage was born out of convenience and not necessarily love. But that's its own story that doesn't really belong on Reddit. Update 2, July 18, 2023, 11 months later. So, about a year ago my 31 male, cousin Alice 19 female, moved in with me and my wife 28 female, on her 18th birthday after being told she needed to move out on said birthday by her parents' mid-50s. I'm here with an update at her suggestion. The good. A year later she's a year into an engineering degree, she's been playing lots of hockey, raised a couple of steers all on her own, and at her therapist's recommendation she's down to monthly sessions after a brief stop at bi-weekly after starting with weekly. She's the same sweet kid but without the extra unneeded stress of being treated like an also-ran, alongside her younger siblings. The bad. Her dad showed up around a month after my original post and there was a confrontation of sorts that ended with a peace bond being issued with restrictions on how Bill and Tanya could contact Alice, myself, my wife, or a couple of other family members that got involved. After the 6 months required by the peace bond, Tanya started getting back up to her old tricks, but Bill seems to have smartened up a bit. The peace bond meant Alice has had limited contact with her siblings, which has been tough. The oldest 15 male started out pretty hostile, but some of the other cousins filled him in on what was going on. I got blamed for his sudden shift in attitude, because we've established that I am just the worst. The silly. The gossipy family mellowed out when they realized that the literal gravy train wasn't going to stop at the station for them. Thanksgiving last year was 26 people compared to the 60 plus that came the last year I threw prior to COVID restrictions. Easter this year was back up to an even 40, so we're probably going to plateau a little short of the old numbers. As for a resolution to the problem, Bill has been texting Alice every couple of days to check in. They've gone for coffee a few times after the peace bond expired. I'd go to his funeral but not his birthday party, were Alice's words when I asked her about where they're at. I'm hoping time can heal that wound, but she's been really good at setting boundaries. To quote one of the great warrior poets of our time, John Cougar Mellencamp, life goes on. I'll answer questions if it's allowed, otherwise, here's some closure, guys. Update 3, March 28, 2024, 8 months later, 1.5 years from original post. Because I'm a bit scatterbrained, I'm going to do this update in 3 parts: what's happened, what's happening, and miscellaneous comment and question answering. First up, what's happened. It's been a greasy horror show in a lot of ways, but everyone I care about is okay. That's a win, and we take those. I can go into a little more detail because I don't have to follow the IDA rules, just the Reddit ones. So, Bill. He's been trying his best, I'll give him that. The guy's as sharp as a sack of wet mice on his best day, so him doing his best isn't particularly impressive, but he's trying, and that's really all you can ask of a person. He was texting Alice every day or every other day and seemed to genuinely want to fix their relationship. They started to communicate less after a month or so, still texting weekly. I admit, I got my hackles up over that, but Alice told me, we didn't have enough to talk about when I lived there to talk every day. Once a week is plenty. They've gone for coffee a few times. They've gone to the restaurant in town or sometimes the gas station with all the old farts on Coffee Row, as Bill's been advised to stay away from me, my missus, our property, and our respective places of work, but we've been cordial when we've crossed paths by accident a few times. There's no actual court order, the peace bond has long since expired, but it's a small community and one of the constables at the local department told him that it wouldn't reflect well on him if he went looking for trouble and a judge had to deal with it again. He and Tanya are separated. That was the first night he came down to the house since the day he showed up and I beat the brakes off him and got the peace bond. They've been fighting non-stop about Alice since we took her. Their oldest son has refused to talk to him since they separated back in October. Their younger son has been weathering the storm as well as a kid can. Their daughter is a total daddy's girl and is devastated that she's only seeing her dad on the weekend. I'm not privy as to what the specifics are. Bill came over devastated and upset. He was 3 sheets to the wind, and we were the only place within staggering distance. Tanya told him to leave and that if he didn't, she'd call the cops. Nobody's told me what happened that night, and to be honest, I don't care enough to ask. Reaping is never as fun as sowing, and Bill's learning that. This has thankfully not impacted Alice too much. Her oldest brother has been a bit of a jerk about things, but she's thankfully seeing the parallels between their situations and taking it in stride. A quick aside on that subject, I'm very proud of her. She's become able to navigate some incredibly nuanced situations with a level of emotional intelligence that I know she didn't pick up from me, so we're going to chalk that up to my missus going full mama bear. Speaking of, that's some more foreshadowing. On to Tanya, she and Bill are separated. I didn't talk to her when we were talking, so I haven't received updates since. She's told the kids that it's all Alice's fault to varying degrees of success. It sucks, but in helping Alice how we've positioned ourselves to be unable to help her siblings. My genuine hope is that the rest of the family is able to pull off the necessary mental gymnastics to see that those kids are hurting because of how their parents are handling things while still being dead set on Tanya and Bill not being the problem. An epiphany as to what's been going on for the last 15 years would be nice, but that's a big ask, and I worry that a shift in worldviews of that magnitude could cause serious lasting harm to the tectonic plate beneath them when it happens. On to Alice, she's doing really well. Her life is her own, so I don't want to dive into specifics. I asked her before I decided to post this, and she said that it was helpful for healing, but now she's at the point where she doesn't want to dwell, which is fair. The long and short is, school is good, she's working part-time in an engineering-adjacent role at a company that's on her list of places to apply when she graduates. She sold off her steers and hasn't raised any more because there's only so many hours in a day. She's been playing hockey still, but in a less competitive league. We're looking at subdividing some of the property in a few years so she can own her own space, build her own place, and have independence. That lets us put the title in her name, where she's not beholden to us or attached to us in any way and can have her own flight plan moving forward. She did ask me to say that she's very appreciative for the support that so many strangers have shown. She still goes back and reads comments on the post every now and again. On that subject, I appreciate it as well. On to the rest of the family. With Bill and Tanya separating, I've had a bunch of people who used to be firmly in the camp of me being the source of discord reach out and tell me they'd changed their minds. Not that they apologized or were wrong, just that their opinions had changed on the subject. I told them to piss up a rope and suck the wet end. We're done hosting the large gatherings at every holiday. I know the posts didn't really touch upon my missus's family or how they felt on the subject. What it comes down to is they were supportive from the sidelines but are wise enough not to do the dance with the devil that is engaging with my side of the family. If her family were a small farm town full of honest, hard-working people, mine is the meth-riddled trailer park across the tracks. They've been coming out in force for family events, even cousins that live quite a drive away and we're not close with. She told them that I've made being the host for family stuff a big part of who I am and what makes me happy, and they responded in kind. A lot of my side of the family is still coming, but it's a much smaller number of people. Still a lot to cook for, but I enjoy it, and it's all people that respect us and care about coming instead of showing up for a free meal and booze. This definitely impacted me in a bigger way than I imagined. The original post was really about Alice, and there's a reason for that. I'm all figured out, I'm a grown man and I've got my life in order. She was a scared, neglected kid who needed help. After we got through everything and she was safe, sound, and on track, I read through the comments on the posts and a few of them really stood out. They bothered me in a weird way that I couldn't explain. People were consistently pointing out that it's a lot easier to step in and make waves to do the right thing when you were already the black sheep. That really cut deep in a good way. It made me do a lot of thinking and introspection, which I think has led me to a better place overall. I haven't talked much about myself, but I wanted to do so a little bit now that everyone else is taken care of. I grew up being beaten like a drum and was a vicious little bastard through most of my childhood and teen years. I grew out of that lashing out behavior eventually and got a job in the oil patch with one of my uncles. I actually met my wife through work as she was one of our payroll admins, and my messy writing made a lot of extra work for her. It's a super cute story but not one for Reddit. I met my boss working in the patch and he really instilled in me the importance of being part of a community. He got me into coaching hockey, and volunteering at community events. I'm still a volunteer firefighter 10 years later because of his guidance. My entire adult life, I've always been the stable, stoic rock for everyone else. I'm a very tall, robust man with a booming voice and a big laugh. I can fix anything with a screwdriver and a set of vice grips. If you have a problem, I know everyone in town and can get you to the right person and probably get you a discount. I've volunteered in my community everywhere I've been able to. I've mentored with the Big Brothers program, built a playground and facilities for the Boys and Girls Club, hosted pancake breakfasts and steak nights, ran bingos. I've helped fundraise to cover medical expenses for people I've never heard of or met before the fundraiser. I'm a damn good person, and I'm proud of it. I thought my family saw that and was proud of me too. Realizing that no, they weren't proud of me, I just went from being a liability to an asset in their eyes was rough. I didn't have a breakdown, but it definitely affected me in a big way. Thankfully, I'm married to the most amazing person to grace this earth, and she helped me through it and supported me every step of the way. Along the way, the family that is genuinely proud of me and that cares about me and loves me came through too. We had stopped trying for kids since the start of all this mess, and I wasn't sure I wanted to start back up again, because if I could do all that and my family didn't love me, what more could I do? And worse, what if whatever was wrong with me and my family meant I wouldn't love my kids? To answer or address a few consistent comments and questions I've seen across the posts. I have no clue to this day what Bill and Tanya's problem with Alice is. Bill does seem to genuinely want to do right by Alice. I spoke with him a bit when I first had concerns, but to quote Gandalf the White, I looked into his eyes and saw no deception. He's a fool, but an honest one. As long as Alice is comfortable and he's going to be a source of positive energy moving forward, I think she's better off with him in her life in some capacity than without him. I've never considered writing, and it's not something that interests me. I've been told I have the gift of the gab, and I've essentially just written down a stream of consciousness as I would speak it. Sorry for the silly turns of phrase. I'm from the tree line in the prairies, we talk funny here. Story 2. I filed a restraining order against a crazy cat lady boomer. But she's the real victim. Original post, March 10, 2024. So a year ago my sister, who has autism and other cognitive and physical disabilities, was having trouble adjusting to her move to my city from my parents' house and wanted a cat for emotional support. She found a posting for a cat that needed rehoming as it was attacking the other cats in the home. I went with my sister to pick up the cat and met her owner, let's call her Karen. Firstly, Karen's house smelled so badly of cigarettes and cat feces that I had to go outside a few times during the visit to keep myself from retching. Karen originally was going to drop the cat off at my sister's in a couple of days, but I offered to take her now and save the trip. She agreed, with no hesitation, and she got the cat's things. 2 days later, Karen went to my sister's place to get the cat carrier and invited herself back for the next week. But the day after that first visit, she decided she wanted the cat back because the cat had been hiding in the closet and my sister's apartment was too small. My sister got upset because she was already attached to the new cat. The very next day Karen changed her mind and decided my sister was a good fit after all. But then she started blowing up my sister's phone with texts and calls wanting constant updates on the cat, and she'd get mad if my sister didn't respond in 2 hours. My sister warned her she was going to block her and eventually did. So, Karen decided to come to my sister's job and hang out for 4 hours trying to talk to her. My sister hid in the back. Then Karen called the cops on my sister asking for the cat back and to get them to do a welfare check on the cat, which is not a thing, so the police didn't do it. My sister tells me all this the next day, so I call the police to get them to tell Karen to leave my sister alone. Trying to be nice, I reached out to Karen and told her I'd send her pics once in a while if she left my sister alone, because her behavior was giving my sister panic attacks and hives. She kept crying about how the cat was her child and she was its mother and she was heartbroken. Things were fine for a couple of weeks, but then when I didn't respond fast enough, Karen got her sister to reach out to mine. So, then I had to tell the sister to stop. Quick version of the next year, Karen persisted. She found my sister and I on different social media. We'd block her and she'd find another one. In October she somehow found a former employer of mine and tried to convince them to put me in touch with her for an emergency. The last straw was she came into my sister's job again this last week, after we've had the police tell her 3 times to leave us alone. She caught my sister and cried and begged for photos. My sister was freaked out and showed her 2 pics to get the lady to leave. Then Karen hugged her, despite my sister twice telling her not to. I was livid. I unblocked Karen and called her. I'm not proud, but I get super defensive when it comes to my sister, so I straight up yelled at her and told her she was crazy and to leave my sister alone and we're getting a restraining order. Then I calmed down and promised to hear her out. In true boomer fashion, she explained how she was the victim and said my sister blocked her out of nowhere after promising she could see the cat. I said, "You forgot something there, what did you do before my sister blocked you?" Karen said nothing. And I said, "So you didn't call the cops on her and blow up her phone and ask for the cat back and show up at her work?" And she said no. I told her I have the texts and the police report, so she did as any good boomer would, she ignored that, and instead she started sobbing about all of her unrelated problems. I told her this restraining order is happening, so you won't get any more updates on this cat. What are you going to do to help yourself move past this? At which point she called me a bitch 3 times and told me I wasn't the authority of her. Cut to my sister's caseworker sending me Facebook posts this woman made where she names my sister and I and tells her victim boomer story of how we tricked her into giving up her cat and then refused to give her updates, of course failing to mention why we did that. She explains how cruel and heartless we are and asks that people find out what happened to her cat, again, after naming us. And then all her little Facebook boomer friends agree that we're cruel and heartless and poor Karen. Edit. Restraining order is approved. So happy. Thank you so much for your support. Update 1, March 29, 2024, 19 days later. I previously posted about needing to get a restraining order against a mentally unstable woman who was stalking my special needs sister and I after giving my sister a cat. We had the hearing on Monday. The first words out of Karen's mouth at the hearing, "You probably guessed it, I'm the real victim here." Sure, Karen. The judge lets her talk for a bit and then starts with, "We can all agree you had posted the cat online for adoption." And boomer Karen interrupts her to say no. The judge is a little flabbergasted but lets Karen explain. She starts by saying she never posted online. The judge asks how then did my sister find the cat. Karen then admits she had looked at posting the cat because everyone was telling her she should, but she never did. So, the judge asks again how did my sister find the cat, and Karen then states, "I filled out the form and I must have hit enter while in a trance." And the rest of the hearing pretty much went like that. The judge had to tell her multiple times that her own evidence that she provided contradicted what she was saying. And of course, Karen, when faced with logic, would start to cry and call herself the victim. My favorite part was that Karen had typed up her text messages and included one my sister and I had never seen calling my sister a bitch. Then she told the judge she had never been mean or disrespectful and the judge was like, "You're the one who gave me a text where you call her a bitch?" To which Karen replied, "I have depression and anxiety. Anyway, glad it's over but thought you all might like to hear what it's like to take a boomer to court." Unsurprisingly the key is to let them talk, they'll dig their own grave. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Glad you weathered the boomer pity party. I hope your sister got to keep her cat. OP. She did. Which would have had to be a separate civil matter anyway, which the judge did tell her, so fingers crossed nothing happens with that. That reminds me of one of the other annoying things she was doing though, because my sister has special needs, she was appointed a guardian attorney by the court. Boomer at least 4 times mentioned how she couldn't afford an attorney, despite the fact that it was started at the beginning that the attorney on our side was appointed by the county. Comment 2. Was the judge exasperated at the end of this string of lies or fascinated that someone could put this bull crap out all at once? OP. She was losing patience a bit, but I have to hand it to her, she did work really hard to be fair. She asked us some tough questions too. But I think baffled would be the overall word I'd use for how the judge seemed to feel. The judge had to tell her repeatedly that we'd asked her to stop multiple times and it doesn't matter if she feels she's right, she has to respect that. At one point the judge went as far as to say, "We all have to follow the laws, even those we don't agree with, because that's the contract we're all in as citizens." I didn't know that the crazy cat lady from The Simpsons was based on a real person. I wonder if she was doing any drugs, or if she is that crazy all by herself, because putting a cat up for adoption and then going psycho over someone adopting the cat is crazy. Hopefully, after the restraining order, she leaves them alone, but if she's that crazy I don't know if that will stop her. Anyway, that's all we have for this video. Have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next video.